Hey there, YouTube, it's Petey Two Finger, and this is my Morse code practice oscillator. How do you like that? It's got a meow meow, meow meow kitty. You can do, some people call me Maurice. It has a lithium-ion rechargeable battery pack. So it's two 18650 cells. These are what's in the Tesla. These batteries are 4.2 volts. This was all stuff, like I built the key. It's all fabricated out of junk. But binocular case that fell apart. This is a leather piece that's your it's really comfortable. Like I designed it. when I slapped it together, I like to keep it real here. I did it in a fashion that it wouldn't harm me. So yeah, there's some brass contacts. These, I don't know where I got these little brass plates, but they wire into the tone board that produces the tone. There's an oscillator, or excuse me, there's an amplifier board for the speaker, and there's an oscillator board to produce the tone. The speaker is a Logitech computer. It's a little tiny speaker. I was going to just screw a woofer down onto the board, and then I realized, oh, I've got that little, and I thought I'm going to have to try to put it in an enclosure. Anytime you have a speaker out of the box, it doesn't sound as good. So I thought, let me put it in this. I got this PVC laying around, and I did go out and buy these two, the elbows and the cap. So that was like $4 at Home Depot. I was like, man, this is getting out of hand. So I garbage picked the stain that I used to stain this piece of wood. I did get the primer. This primer for this board was marked down. I learned from my mom. This is what they call it, carpet tile, and it's got adhesive, but I beefed it up. This red and blue wire is recycled from a computer power supply. It's all recycled wire. I got this is the coolest thing. The breaker switch that came out of a old like a farmer tractor, and it had a big light on and I got the light too from the junkyard. So that's where that came from. And the L bracket I got today at Goodwill. This plastic bracket. These are so cool. This little bracket here. It's got a lift that comes up with cutouts, so you can just run a zip tie through it. Man, is that cool! I like to know where to get more of those. And this knob was in my junk drawer since I was a kid. I don't know where I got this knob. Probably took it off of some furniture that was on the curb when I was riding my bike. I'll use that knob later, and I finally use it now. The play, I don't know if you can see, it's making a contact in here. There's a brass plate here, and then there's that thumb screw with another. So the contacts are all brass here, and there's a plastic spacer here. I had to use some washers to gap it out right, and this is like some fitting from cable TV. And these little brass plates, I don't know where I got those. But all the fasteners are recycled. Everything's recycled on here except the battery connectors. And then these two here. But everything else is recycled. I did pay for these elbows, this cap. But binocular case. This is the top, the ergonomic design, but My whole thing with electronics started with the Science Fair 160 in 1 project kit, which was something they sold at Radio Shack. It was a box full of components with spring connectors and wire. And it would give you these number layouts, and you'd connect them. The springs were numbered and make these circuits. And they had a little key, and it had Morse code on there. Their Morse code oscillator produced a square wave, which when I think of somebody doing Morse code, I think of like a I don't think of a square wave. Like that thing that I just did, that's like a sine wave. But I was looking, like, I started just thinking about this, and I started looking, and there's guys, like, they still use it. They still use Morse code. They call it CW. They have paddles that they can hit different directions. So instead of just down, now it's right and left, and you have like doot doot doot. So they can go like doot 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 doot. Like really, they can boogie. Like they get going on it. They have a little like $60 thing with a readout. You plug that in and it'll interpret it for you. There's a little LCD screen. It's pretty cool. And then there's guys that are building, this is called a straight key. They have like paddles. Oh, that's a bug. Like, I guess this is a straight key. But there's guys making straight keys where they'll put a chunk of brass on a lathe and like lathe it down, and it's all golden and shiny. And then they got like marble. There'll be like a big chunk of marble. Like, are you sacrificing goats, or is this it's like, this is getting wicked stuff that they got going on. Hundreds of dollars for these keys. Oh, Mr. Picky, are you okay? Is Daddy talking too much? And I will, a lot of times when I'm mixing, I'll hear stuff, like especially if I use a phase shifter effect on a cymbal, I'll have a separate track for the cymbal, and I'll put a phase shifter, which is like kind of this wavy kind of effect. Eddie Van Halen used that like on Eruption. If you really listen to his guitar, it's got a phase shifter on it. But it'll create some overtones, and sometimes I hear things in my music that's not really there, but it kind of. So it'll sound like something to me, like a cat meowing, or a phone, a busy signal on the phone. So a lot of times if I hear that, and I won't hear it right away, it always happens after I've been performing the song live. When I'm not in the music, but I'm in the zone. I'll hear this stuff, and so what I like to do is I'll go in there and I'll reproduce that with some oscillator, and have that in there, and not have it happen every time. It'll just be like, oh, on the 18th one, it really does the cat. So this it'll serve a purpose. Now, as far as the science behind this is a test oscillator. Okay, I purchased this as a kit. It comes with an XR2206 chip, which I'm sure it's not authentic. These chips are expensive because I don't think they make them anymore. At least the people that, like, was it NJM that made these? National Japan Radio Corporation or whatever. But probably this is a counterfeit chip, meaning that it's a stolen die that they reproduce. Because if you're buying your components from like eBay, China Direct, AliExpress, Alibaba, you're not getting authentic components on certain things. They fake everything. They fake the op amps, and like when you start physically testing them, like you can use your multimeter to determine how much current it's using, and you can look it up in the Texas Instruments data sheet. It'll say the exact amount of current that this high performance operational amplifier is supposed to draw. and it's only drawing a fraction of that. Well, the whole appeal of this expensive component is that it sucks up a real lot of power because it sounds so good. It's reproducing all these frequencies because, and part of that is it's working so hard is that it gobbles up more power. So when you start poking around and actually looking and you realize I'm getting ripped off, and then you look at the chip and where it says Texas Instruments, Texas doesn't quite, it looks more like Long Island, the Texas Instruments logo. Like, you look on the data sheets like pin 2 and 3, there's a pair of diodes going crisscross. So then you put your diode test on your meter and you put it on there. There's no diodes. So it's kind of not me. And then when you Google it, it's like, oh yeah, they're all fake. If you're buying that stuff from China, it's fake. And they work, but they don't perform up to spec. And that's the thing when you're going through this process, like I'm doing. I want to make sure that I'm not getting screwed. That the thing's going to sound really good. Can you tell? Sounds great. So yeah. This is more than likely a counterfeit chip. It's not producing a real pure sine wave. But I paid $3 for this. This kit. It was, I think they're like $5 or $6 now, shipped. I paid $3 for this. And I think I ordered a half a dozen of them, and I built stuff out of all of them. This was my last one. And when I was thinking about doing this, was like, do I go ahead and go from scratch and build on strip board and do a twin T oscillator? And then I found this thing, because I was gonna, and then I found this, and I was like, oh man, I'm just building that, because it's just doing a beep beep, It's not that much of a difference to have a square wave. I mean, I'll hear it. And I don't like square waves. I don't. If you like, this is a piece of test equipment, and it'll produce square, triangle, which is also known as a sawtooth wave, and then sine wave. And forgive me if you know this, but a square wave, when you look at it, they call it a square wave because it looks like this, and it's basically the power comes on and shuts off. Power comes on and shuts off. If you cycle that fast enough, it produces a tone. Mind you, it's a little rough around the edges because it is rough around it's square. It's going on and off. And when you go low frequency, it doesn't produce a tone. It's just popping. It's just coming on, just shooting voltage out and then no voltage. Your speaker just goes pop, pop. And I'm like, man, that's not good for that thing. Mind you, sometimes you want it to sound like, that can do a good machine gun or motorcycle. And when you get into the higher frequencies, it's nasty. Like the old Moog synthesizers, at the very root of those, how you built those patches, the first choice you had to make was square, sine wave, or triangle. Because they sound a lot, you can tell. The sine wave is the one where it's nice. The triangle is like it ramps up and then it cuts off, ramps up and it cuts off. And even that ramping up, the cutting off is a little abrupt, but that's on the far side of the note, so the attack. So triangle or sawtooth is better than, anything is better than square. But the sine wave, that's the one that's almost sounds like a human voice. Like you can kind of, maybe it sounds like an opera singer holding a note. It's so like mellow in its timbre. And like I said, when I think of someone doing one of these, I don't think like square wave. I think of like like more like mellow timbre. So that's why I went with the sine wave. And the cheapest way, the simplest way that I could pull that off was this kit XR2206 signal generator, which this is made for fixing stuff. You have a broken amp, You plug your signal generator to the input, and then you take your oscilloscope and start poking around. You'll see the wave. See, oh, this sine wave is messed up. Well, that's because you're getting distortion because this part's out of whack. And for me, when I'm building things, I don't necessarily finish building them and plug my guitar in. Like if it's a guitar pedal, I'll plug it into the oscillator. That way, if something's not working, I don't have to have my wife holding it, just strumming all night while I'm in there cleaning up cold soldering iron joints. And there's this trick that you use a audio probe. So it's basically just the hot wire. There's a capacitor for blocking voltage, just in case, and then a clip for the ground. And you plug that into your test amp and clip the ground on, and then you go on your input. You plug your oscillator, your sine wave oscillator, into the input, and then you go on the input with your probe, and oh, beep, I've got it. Go to the next component, this C1, this 0.1 microfarad capacitor. Beep, I got it. I got it on the output of that capacitor, and then pretty soon you're on the third transistor, Q3. Beep, I got it on the emitter. Oh, I don't have anything on the base or the collector. So that transistor is either bad or the parts that are feeding it is an issue there. So that's a way that you can troubleshoot, and that's why they sell this. It's not it's not for making test tone Morse code oscillator. But and that being said, I'm sure this is a bunk chip. It doesn't sound great. It's not a real sine wave, but it's good enough. And then this is the amplifier LM386, which is just a garbage amp. The chip itself is about 25 cents. It requires about 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. It requires 9 or 10 additional components to become an amplifier. This chip, it's called an LM386, puts out a half a watt of power is what it's rated at, and they're just garbage. If you play a guitar through them, they're really distorted, and if you manage to get a clean sound out of it on the release or the decay of the note, the very end, there's all this like cutting in and like cutting out and like distortion, just nasty artifacts. And like guys will build it and they'll like, and they're like Metallica and they're jamming, and they never really like hold a note or stop. So they're like, my amp is rocks, dude. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like, go to a C note, just a C, and just hit it and let it ring out, and then listen to what happens on the end of that, tail end of that note, and then tell me how good your amp is. So I used this LM386 because I had it. I really, like, if I cared about this, I would have hand built from scratch a twin T oscillator from transistors, and then I would have used a TDA 7052A. It's twice the power rating with less current draw than the LM386, and they sound really good. But like this, you get this whole board for $1. That one, the chip is $1. Probably $1.50 by now, but they're really good sounding little chips. It's funny, like how you look at our music charts and what is popular, how it's just not good. It's bad. It doesn't edify you, and the music itself is bad. It's the same thing with electronic projects. People build the worst stuff, and they love the worst. Like if it's a cheap, like I don't know if it's these companies. They're like, yeah, produce this 555 chip, and they'll love it. And you can make a square wave with like 3 or 4 additional parts, and that's all everybody does. If you look up Morse code oscillator, they all use a 555 chip, and that's that square wave. It sounds terrible. So The other thing is the community is just enamored with this LM386, and it's horrible amp. Yeah, they're a quarter, but I mean, this is like you can't even get a piece of gum for a quarter. Like you're soldering this stuff is coming on a boat from China. At least get a good you know what I mean? You're going to go to all this effort. That being said, I'm sitting here with a LM386 talking trash. So take it for what it was. I mean, I ordered this because it was $1 and I knew I would have an application where I would want just a plug and play little amplifier that I didn't really care about the performance. And this does it just fine. So the key itself, this is a cable TV part. This little bracket here. These brass pieces, I have no idea where I got them. I had to clean those up, sand them, and then there's a black. This is the bar is what's called plumber's tape. So it's a strip of metal like tin with hole, alternating small and large hole. I just covered that with hockey tape. I had this brass pair of brass like a screw and then this thumb screw. And so it is brass contacts in here. I use that little plate because the contact is made here at this point. This wooden knob, I had it in my junk drawer since I was a kid. I must have garbage pulled this when I was riding around on my bike and then somebody was throwing away a desk or something, and I unscrewed that. So I've had this since I don't know how long. And that's what I really love about these projects. Like, you know, I got this back probably around Y2K. And it was on my boat. I ran this on the boat. Now it's on my bad egg. That's the triangle. You can hear it's a little bit more nasty. You can hear it's a little more harsh sounding than when you put it on. A little bit. And it's like this thing, it doesn't really produce an authentic sine wave, I don't think. For $3, what do you expect? So this is my Morse code Morse code practice oscillator. Thank you for joining me on this video. I know I went long on it, as I tend to do when I'm talking about something that I love. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, good luck. Anyway, you guys, take care of yourselves. Let's be nice. Can we do that? I think it's important that you hug your pets. Be nice to an animal. My little guy was a really good boy today. He let the mama sleep, and then the landlord came banging on the door, and he went and hid like a champ. So he's going to get an extra temptations. You guys, I'll talk to you soon. Take care of yourselves. Hug your pets, and peace.